Hello, Iona College. Welcome back to the Sports Vault. I am your host with the most, Jersey Joe, coming with my partner, as always, Big Shot Rob. And Rob, I'm really excited to have the show going on today. It was a great weekend in sports. We've got a ton of stuff to talk about. Now, Rob, usually we started off and we go over each game by game, what we thought. But the main point I wanted to go over before we got into the individual matchups is just is there certain teams in the NFL that aren't as good as we thought at the beginning of the year? The main teams I'm talking about are the Patriots, the Packers, the Saints, and the 49ers. All four of these teams, you have the Patriots barely scraping by the Raiders. The Packers only put up 7 points against the Lions on the road. You have the 49ers who are now 1-2. Given they lost to a good Cardinals team. But I don't like what I've seen out of the 49ers. And the Saints, they won, but they really haven't had a really strong performance. So I'm going to go to you, Rob. Have we overvalued these teams at the start of the season, or is it just too early to panic right now?
I think we've overvalued a couple teams, Joe. Drew Brees, everybody's expecting high numbers, but what it's coming to understanding is Drew Brees is getting older in age right now, and maybe that's why the Saints team isn't as explosive. Green Bay, when you look at them, Aaron Rodgers is their whole offense. He really doesn't have weapons that he usually used to have, like Donald Driver. It's just Jordy Nelson really out there. Eddie Lacy's not putting up that much production. And the 49ers, as we said last week, Colin Kaepernick is not the quarterback for them. Kaepernick cannot lead the team. Struggled greatly versus that Arizona defense last week. And the 49ers, they're going to have a really down year this year. I really see it happening.
And I want to talk about the 49ers because out of all those teams, that's the one I'm the most concerned about. I think the Saints and the Patriots have shown you they have great, stable head coaches. The two quarterbacks there have won. They know what it takes to win. I'm not as worried about them. But the 49ers, I am really worried about. We talked a lot about it last year when that weird story came out about the 49ers were trying to trade Harbaugh to the Browns, and there just was not a lot of continuity between the GM for the 49ers, Trent Baalke, and the head coach of the 49ers, Harbaugh. And so I could never wrap my head around that. And now I pose this question to you, Rob. Is Harbaugh losing the locker room?
I think he is, because after watching last night, we saw with Anquan Boldin, Joe, where him and Harbaugh are just getting into a grudge match right there on the bench. They're arguing like crazy. You see Boldin sitting with Michael Crabtree, and they're talking bad stuff, because I know that's what they were probably doing. And this team, I think he's lost them completely. But Harbaugh is a great coach. I think he could get them right back on the right track. But I don't know what is up with this team. If it's just that a lot of guys are so high up and they think they're so much better than everybody else. But this team is just out there. I don't know what exactly is going on. This team should be one of the best teams out there in the NFL. And these first 3 weeks, I have no understanding what is going on. They have just looked terrible to me in my eyes.
Really? I mean, and the big thing is, I always say it, Colin Kaepernick production comes from the run game. When the run game is fluent and it's working well, Colin Kaepernick thrives. You haven't really seen Frank Gore really thriving so far. You've seen Carlos Hyde, he's looked nice, but Colin Kaepernick, his production comes from the run game. I really don't like what I've seen from him in the passing game, and I am really worried about the 49ers. My dad was the first one who brought this. He posed that question to me, and I do think Harbaugh's losing the locker room slightly. I mean, this has been a really rough start. Arizona, I mean, and this is the thing too, Rob. The 49ers haven't scored in the fourth quarter in any of their games yet. Wow. Yesterday, they had those chances. They had the terrible penalty by Bolden. That was just a bonehead play. They haven't scored in the fourth quarter yet, and it's a big concern. And you look at the way Arizona's playing right now. With that, I picked for the 49ers to win that game yesterday, mainly because I thought without Carson Palmer, the 49ers would have enough to take. But you see they won that game with Drew Stanton, how well he looked in that offense. Bruce Arians is just a heck of a football coach. I mean, I don't think he gets enough credit sometimes to do what he's done with the quarterbacks he has, Carson Palmer and now Drew Stanton, to make them work in that offense so well. That's just unbelievable. I mean, I think Bruce Arians is a heck of a football coach, and with the way the Seahawks and the Cardinals have looked so far, the 49ers, it's going to be a rough year. But that's that for that part. And now, Rob, let's go to the teams who are thriving. There are a couple of teams who are 3-0 right now. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Philadelphia Eagles, and then like we were just talking about, the Arizona Cardinals. But out of the Eagles and now the Bengals, are those the two best teams that you've seen in the NFL so far?
They've looked pretty decent to me, but the team that I've seen the most outstanding to me is the San Diego Chargers right now.
There we go. Well, if you're watching on the live stream, you can see I am decked out in the San Diego Chargers gear, and I have a lot to say, but Rob, I want to let you finish.
The San Diego Chargers, Joe, have just really stepped out in the offensive line. You told me last year, you said all Phillip Rivers needs is that offensive line, and I've seen this offense thriving. You know, you look at them, they lose Matthews over the weekend. He's going to be out for a while. But this Chargers team, a lot of people better look out for them in the AFC West because they're the ones who are going to cause the most trouble versus the Denver Broncos.
I completely agree, and I mean, you look at the Chargers and you look at them, they could be 3-0 right now. The opening game they lost on Monday night was close until the end, the very end. And the thing I love about the Chargers, I mean, you look at them and you just see they're well prepared for every game. Mike McCoy has done such a good job as the head coach for that team. And when you look at Phillip Rivers now, I mean, you look at last year, it took him a little while to get a little accustomed to that offense. But once he did, he was rolling. He looks so confident right now in that pocket. I mean, I'm seeing Phillip Rivers make throws that I was seeing when the Chargers were at the peak of their performance with Norv Turner when they were making the AFC Championship. I mean, Phillip Rivers just looks like it's night and day. This is the old Phillip Rivers right now. He's so confident in his throws, stepping up in the pocket, delivering the ball down the field. I love what I've seen out of the San Diego Chargers so far. I am a fan of the team, but I mean, your eyes tell you what you need to see, and right now my eyes are telling me the Chargers are going to have a very good football season. So let's go on. Before we go into the NFL, I keep teasing it, but we are going to get into the individual matchups. The last question to pose, Rob, is about the Washington Redskins. Now, obviously the other day, the Eagles and the Redskins was one of the more exciting games of the day, a very close one. And now that's leading a lot of people to question, should the Redskins close the pages on the RG3 era? Is it time to make Kirk Cousins the permanent guy there and just end it with RG3?
I think, honestly, Kirk Cousins should be the starting quarterback for the Redskins. We look back at last year, Joe, you know, he finishes off the season for RG3 when RG3 was benched. He looked pretty rusty. And I think going into this training camp, there had to be speculation, Kirk Cousins could get the starting job for the Redskins. And you see how he is coming out with so much firepower. Last night threw for 427 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I think you have to be very worried with Kirk Cousins because he's a great quarterback and a lot of people overlook him. But you have to start looking at this guy because he's going to be a great force in the NFL.
I agree. I mean, if you asked me a couple weeks ago if I would think that, I would say no. You've still got to roll the dice with RG3. You've still got to give him time. But right now, I think I'm leaning towards you got to make Cousins the guy. I mean, the main thing I look at is this. RG3, the way he runs that offense, it's very conservative. I mean, not very explosive. The running game is a very big part of it. They throw a couple like 10-yard plays here. Not enough explosive. You need to have a big arm, throw the ball down the field in today's NFL. And the RG3 Redskins just don't do that. Kirk Cousins is not afraid to throw the ball down the field. He has the arm to deliver the ball down the field. You saw a couple of the big plays last night to Deshaun Jackson. They can make big throws down the field with Cousins. I think they changed the offense, and he has the ability to run and escape and make plays on his feet. So I think Cousins does everything that you need out of your quarterback now. Big arm, can make plays with his feet, but he's not going to take those risks like RG3. When RG3 runs, he's getting hit, just destroyed every single time. To be honest, I mean, when RG3 comes back, if the Redskins keep playing as well as they looked, I mean, given they lost that game, but they had every opportunity to win that game. If the Redskins are looking really good with Cousins, I don't know. I think I might make him my man. So that's going to do with all our questions. Now we're going to get into the individual matchups themselves. The first one on the slate is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Tennessee Titans. The Bengals winning that one 33-7. And look, this was a pretty easy matchup. I mean, the Bengals being the home team here, I really like what I've seen out of the Bengals so far. Andy Dalton's played very well. And I think you look at both sides of the ball, there's not a lot of teams in the NFL who have depth across both sides of the ball like the Bengals do. They've got a ton of playmakers on defense, really good playmakers on offense. And look, we all know what they're going to do in the regular season. We're all just waiting to see if Andy Dalton can get the monkey off his back and finally get that playoff win.
Yeah, huge win yesterday, Joe, for the Bengals. They're going to win their division this year, hands down. Andy Dalton's really stepping it up. I like the way the defense has been looking, and they really stepped it up last night. Bernard rushing for 47 yards and 2 TDs. You better watch out for this Bengals team this year, because I think after Dalton signed this contract in the offseason, I think he's going to have a really productive year, and I actually see him winning a game in the playoffs
I think he could too. I mean, they keep going at the rate they're going. They're going to have a nice year. Now, let's go to the other NFC North matchup, and you had the Ravens and the Browns. The Browns being the home team, and the Browns are 1-2, but it's a convincing 1-2, isn't it? I mean, they've played really well. They really have had a chance to win all 3 of their first games. Even in that game last night, the only problem, the Browns just couldn't stop the Ravens in the fourth quarter in that game. But I think if you're a Browns fan right now, you could definitely tell that this team's been competitive in every game they've played. They've certainly had their opportunities to win every game. And so if you're a Browns fan, I mean, there's signs of life there.
Yeah, you had to have a lot of hope in this team. This team is great defensively. And I think with the problem with the Browns is we look back even last year where they lost games by 7 points, 3 points. They don't know how to close out. That's their problem. That's the only problem I see right now. This team has to learn to finish it off, close it out, and not let these teams come back in the games. And this Browns team, right now they should be about 3-0 right now in my eyes.
I think that's a great point about finishing out games, and I think that's really citing how young this team is. I mean, they have a lot of young players on this team, and that's something that you'll learn, you'll get more accustomed to, but good point there on that one. Now let's go to the Dallas Cowboys and the St. Louis Rams. Now, this game was really interesting. The Cowboys were down 21-0 at one point. Coming back and winning that game was very big for them, but I mean, you just look at that defense still. I mean, Austin Davis just had a field day on that defense, and still, I mean, look, we've said it, the offense for the Cowboys are going to keep them in these games. They're going to help them win these games, but that defense is such a liability. The Cowboys will be playing in the Sunday night game next week and against Drew Brees, and Drew Brees is probably going to put up 10,000 yards against that defense again, but it's going to be ugly. But that was a nice win for the Cowboys. They ran the ball pretty well. Coming back in that game, it was a pretty nice win for them.
Yeah, nice win, but I would love to have seen Jerry Jones' face when they were down 21-0.
Oh, my God.
This Cowboys team, their defense is terrible. They need Rob Ryan back. Should never have fired the guy.
Terrible.
But surprisingly, they got this win. But my big question is their defense is just terrible, and that's why they won't succeed in the NFC East.
I will say this, anybody who has Drew Brees for fantasy next week, you're going to have a nice day. Let's go on to the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. Now, Rob, you know how big of a Lions fan I am. I was surprised. I picked the Lions to lose this game. I thought the Lions were just the more undisciplined team, but they really played a good game yesterday. I mean, holding the Green Bay Packers to 7 points, that was very impressive, and it's really nice for that bounce back coming off that really disappointing loss to the Panthers. Matt Stafford didn't play a great game, but I mean, this was one of those grinded out type of wins, and they got the win. The running game stepped up. Reggie Bush had a really nice day, and look, I mean, Caldwell I've been critical of, but that was a big win against the Green Bay Packers. And with the way they've looked and the way the Bears have started off the season, the Lions, I don't know, they might surprise us. You never know. The Lions always disappoint, but right now I'm optimistic about what I've seen from Detroit.
I'm not too big on this one, Joe. I just feel that the Lions and Packers are not such great teams right now this year. I don't have high expectations for Lions. I haven't liked the way Stafford has played. Even yesterday, wasn't that great a play.
No, he wasn't.
Throw a touchdodown. And you look at the Packers, as we said before, Aaron Rodgers has no weapons. They can't get the running game started. Jordy Nelson can't catch every pass from Aaron Rodgers. The ball can't get thrown to him 100 times in the game. And I don't see the Lions or Packers going too far this year. This win, yeah, they got to win, a nice, decent win, but I don't see it as like a huge impact win for them.
Here's the thing. I do agree with you. I think that division is looking pretty weak right now, but I will say the Lions have a chance only because of Minnesota's not going to do anything. Green Bay hasn't looked great yet, and the Bears are off to a rough start. So it's going to be between those three teams. It's just going to be who's going to shape it out coming in the next couple weeks. So let's go on to the next game on the slate: the Oakland Raiders and the New England Patriots. The Raiders really almost. I mean, this was one of the reasons why I was saying New England is one of those teams. Maybe they're not as good as we thought because they haven't had a quality win. I mean, They beat Minnesota last week. They lost that game to Miami in week 1. You really haven't seen a complete performance from the Patriots yet where you're just really confident. I mean, you look at that game yesterday. If Derek Carr doesn't throw that really bad pass and it gets intercepted, the Raiders are probably going to win that game. So New England really has gone off to a rough start, and I haven't liked what I've seen out of them.
Yeah, they're a very shocking team to me, Joe. You would think, like, with all the weapons they acquired over the offseason, their defenses look fine to me. But for some reason, that offense can't get rolling. Versus the Raiders, they should have been able to drop at least 30 points, Joe.
Yeah.
And you had to wonder what is up with this offense right now. But I think in the next couple of weeks, we'll see Tom Brady getting this offense rolling, and they'll be dropping about 20 to 28 points a game.
I agree. I mean, it's kind of like last year. New England kind of got off to a slow start, not putting up a lot of points. But as the season progressed, the offense started clicking more. I think that's probably what's going to happen here. Now, I did skip over the Indianapolis Colts and the Jaguars. There's not a lot to say from the Colts side. I mean, Andrew Luck, 4 touchdown passes yesterday. They were just rolling. For the Jaguars, finally, they made the move. I believe Blake Bortles will be starting next week on the road against the Chargers. Now, that is a very tough first game to be thrown into, especially with the way the Chargers have played, but I think it's the right move. Chad Henne wasn't doing anything with this team. You're just delaying the inevitable. It's just watching mediocrity. You might as well see what Blake Bortles can do. I like what I saw at him in the preseason, and I'm excited to see how Blake Bortles does in his first start.
Yeah, me too, Joe. I think he's done... Yesterday, he did a great job versus the Colts. The thing that scared me really nervous with Jacksonville is their defense hasn't looked what it was last year. Jacksonville, the past 2 years, their defense had looked great. Looked like it was on the rise. Looked like Jacksonville might actually stand a chance in this division. In these first 3 games, they're getting destroyed completely. Up 17-0 in week 1, and then they gave up so many points versus the Eagles. And yesterday, giving up 44 points. It's really surprising, their defense. I'm really, really surprised regarding them.
I think you hit the nail on the head. How many times did we say last year that the defense was the selling point of this team? Really aggressive defensively, sound defense, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. They've just been miserable so far, and it's really surprising. But it's going to be, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's going to be rough next week. The Chargers are going to win that game, obviously. They're going to win it handily. But I am very excited to see how Blake Bortles will look. Let's go on to the Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints. And again, on the Saints side, kind of like the Patriots, you know what you're going to get out of this team eventually. But right now, you haven't seen that really sound quality win so far. Hopefully, I shouldn't say hopefully. They should get it next week against the Cowboys because of that defense. But right now, I think New Orleans, I'm still looking for that quality win. And for the Vikings, Matt Castle going down. Teddy Bridgewater, you didn't get a very good sampling size yesterday, but it didn't look terrible. I think I'm excited to see what Teddy Bridgewater is going to look like getting a start. Norv Turner, I think he'll do a nice job with him, seeing how that game plan works out, but I'm excited to see how Teddy will look.
Yeah, he looked pretty decent yesterday, Joe, in his start, but this Vikings team, they can't do anything without Adrian Peterson. We're seeing it right now. Adrian Peterson was the highlight of this team, and without him, they have nothing on offense. Very weak offense team. The Saints have to start rolling, though. Drew Brees has been playing pretty decent in my eyes. He's been very accurate with his passes, throwing for touchdowns, but they had to start rolling, being that Saints team that usually drops about 30 points a game.
Completely agreed, and what better way to get back on track than with the Cowboys next week. Now, let's move on to your team, Rob. I'm just kidding. The New York Giants and the Houston Texans. Now, Rob, I'll say this. Eli Manning, the last 2 weeks, you look at him, he's played pretty well. The problem I've seen with the Giants the last 2 weeks, even in the first half of this game yesterday, was although the special teams, some problems on defense, sloppiness here and there, but Eli, I think you're seeing last week, even with that pick, especially this week, he definitely is playing a lot better.
Yeah, he definitely is, Joe. The last 2 weeks, being able to get 4 touchdowns, only throwing 2 picks. He's been more accurate. I think now the West Coast offense is starting to click with him. Jennings had a great day yesterday with the offense. This Texans team, though, the Giants D was all over them yesterday. Ryan Fitzpatrick struggled, and we saw he kept running, kept getting hit like crazy. And this Giants team, Joe, I think they're going to start going right on the right edge right now.
I agree. I mean, I think the big thing for the Giants is Rashad Jennings, how well he's run the ball, and I think that was a big absence for the Giants last year. They really when David Wilson went down, I mean, things really never worked out in the running game for the Giants. I mean, they were just trying to salvage whatever they could from Peyton Hillis and guys like that. But this year, you see, Rashad Jennings has been really solid for that team. He's really opening up the passing game for Eli, giving Eli a little bit more of a room to work with. So I really like that from Rashad Jennings. And for the Giants, if they keep on moving, things might be looking up better for them. Now, going on, you have another game, the Washington Redskins and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Rob, I was a little critical of Nick Foles at the beginning of the season. I still wanted to see, is he a product of Chip Kelly's offensive systems, or can this guy really play? Can he handle it on his own? And based on the first 3 games, I mean, you look at the Eagles being down the way they were, and LaShawn McCoy hasn't gotten off to a great start. Nick Foles, I'm sold now. I mean, you see some of the throws he was making in that game yesterday. Those were big boy NFL throws. Nick Foles has definitely looked good. I mean, Nick Foles, I'm starting to become much more sold to be down in these games and come back to make the throws he's making. The toughness he showed yesterday with that really physical and a lot of dirty play by Washington. I really think Foles, I'm starting to be a big buyer on him.
Yeah, me too, Joe. This guy, when we look back when he was drafted, completely undervalued, and I found out through my boss. My boss told me about, because my boss's son goes to Arizona, and he said, watch out for him in the next couple of years. And Foles has just fit so well into Kelly's system. And I think this Eagles team might be the best team they have over the last couple of years. This team, I think, could win about 11 to 12 games.
I agree. I had them winning 10, 11 games at the beginning of the season, and right now they're looking really good, the Eagles. I like what I've seen. Let's go on to we already went over the 49ers a little bit, so we'll skip over that one. The next big one, the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the Seahawks yesterday, that was a really good game. I mean, you see at the end, though, I mean, you see with San Diego last week, you saw a little bit with Denver yesterday. I think that teams are starting to kind of figure out how you attack Seattle's defense. You see Richard Sherman, he's really been picked on the last couple of games. Gave up that 2-point conversion to Demaryius Thomas yesterday. I think that teams are really starting to figure it out against this Seahawks team. And, I mean, they did get the win. They went right down the field. Give Russell Wilson credit. I mean, he made some plays when he had to in that game. But I'm starting to think, I mean, teams are starting to throw the ball against this secondary. I don't know. I want to keep on seeing how teams adjust, but right now I'm a little weary of what the Seahawks secondary is looking like.
Yeah, me too, Joe, because I was very surprised with this game yesterday. When it first started out and they were up 17-3, I'm like, this is a Super Bowl all over again.
Yep.
Peyton Manning is getting owned. And then the Broncos were able to come back, get themselves into the game, dropping 17 points. But you had to look at it. As you said, their defense, their secondary, Richard Sherman, I really don't think he's that great of a cornerback. He's a great cornerback, but he's not a legendary cornerback that's unstoppable. You could beat Richard Sherman, and a lot of teams are showing that you could get the ball past him. So I think a lot of teams have figured out the secondary. But the Seahawks, the one highlight that I do like is Russell Wilson.
Yep.
Guy knows what to do when he's running out of the pocket, getting these short passes out, getting them turned into big yardage, and the guy just knows how to protect himself. I saw a couple times yesterday running off for 10 yards and taking nice dives, not getting cracked by the Broncos defense. This Seahawks team, though, I think they're going to go far this year, but I don't see them in Super Bowl contention this year.
Wow. I don't, and I want to go back to your Sherman point. I mean, I do think Sherman is really good, but it helps a lot when you have Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor. I mean, that backfield is just ridiculous. That gives him so much more space to operate with. So I don't know. I think maybe you're going to see teams really start to take advantage and pick more on him, and I really want to see how that'll continue to work out. 2 more games to go over before we go over Big Shot Rob's New York Jets. He's decked out in his Jets gear over here. The Kansas City Chiefs, the Miami Dolphins, the Steelers, and the Panthers. I had both those games wrong. From the Dolphins' perspective, I just can't figure this team out. I really can't. They just kill me. I mean, they're at home for this game. Kansas City is missing their most important offensive piece in Jamal Charles, and the Dolphins lose this game. This Dolphins offense just got off to really slow starts in every game this year. I just can't figure this team out. I really can't. And in terms of the Panthers, very disappointing win, very disappointing loss. I really haven't seen a team run the ball that effectively against the Panthers in 2 years now. I mean, but the Steelers, Le'Veon Bell and LeGarrette Blount, they just were running a havoc on that team. even Luke Kuechly, who I think is as dependable as a defensive player as you can get, he really got ran over all over yesterday. So that's a huge win for the Steelers. Disappointing for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, most definitely, Joe. This Panthers team, I really had high expectations. The Steelers had not been looking great in their first 3 weeks. Really thought the Panthers would come out and shut them out. Very disappointing loss for them. And then you look at the Chiefs or Dolphins, Joe. No matter what you give the Miami Dolphins, no matter what pieces you give them, the team will never win. I'm sorry. The Miami Dolphins of the 2000s, they're not that high grade of a team. Ryan Tannehill, I don't think, is the man for this team. And they have one of the best wide receivers in Mike Wallace. They can't get the job done. And the Miami Dolphins, I'm sorry, I hate them in the AFC East, and I don't think they're that great of a team.
Hey, it's hard to argue based on the results so far. That is it for all those games. But before we end the NFL segment, we've got the Monday night matchup of the New York Jets against the Chicago Bears. Rob, I'm going to let you have your moment. I'm picking your New York Jets tonight. I think that they're going to run the ball extremely well against this Bears defense. That'll open up the passing game for Geno Smith. And aside from a couple of bad plays here and there, Geno Smith's got to clean that up. But I think he has shown a lot of progression so far. And the running game is going to have a good day, and that'll help out Geno Smith. I'm picking the Jets to win the game here.
Right move there, Joe.
There
Great
we go.
move by you. The Jets, they are going to win this game. I'm telling you right now, we are winning this game tonight. We are going to beat the Bears. Geno Smith has full control of this offense. Looked so great in the first 2 games. I think he's going to have a great game tonight. He's running the ball. He's able to throw great. The running game's been moving effectively. My only concern regarding the Jets, though, tonight is Brandon Marshall versus the Jets secondary.
Yep.
Because the Jets secondary has looked pretty weak. We saw it last week with Green Bay with Jordy Nelson exploding all over the Jets secondary. And that's the only thing that they really have to watch out with. Because with Brandon Marshall, he's a guy who will feed off your mistakes and take full advantage of you. We saw it versus the 49ers, able to help them come back, help the Bears come back versus the 49ers last week. And that's only my main concern. But I think the Jets are going to come out and we're going to win this week.
Good point. I mean, yeah, I think that's definitely a good thing to cite right there. It should be a good matchup between two pretty good teams. Looking forward to the game. Rob and I are both rolling with the Jets. Hopefully they'll get a win here. I need to get to 10 wins this week, Rob. I need 10 wins, so I need your Jets to come through. Hopefully they will deliver. That's going to do it for this segment. When we come back, talking college football, English Premier League soccer, baseball for the first time this year. So stay with us, and we will be right back.